2009, a 22-year-old named Savannah was at a party celebrating New Year's Eve with her friends. Later on that evening, her parents received a phone call from the emergency room stating that their daughter was rushed in due to a mixture and overdose of prescription drugs. Unfortunately, when they arrived, she was already dead. Drug abuse has always been a problem in our society. We have organizations like DARE. Many of us are taught as young kids about the dangers and the effects of drugs such as cocaine, heroin, ecstasy, marijuana, all those, but those are what we call street drugs, and no one really talks about the effects of the legal prescription medications that people are prescribed on a daily basis. So how big is this problem of prescription drugs? The Drug Enforcement Administration says that nearly 7 million Americans are abusing prescription drugs. This now exceeds the number of those who are abusing cocaine, heroin, hallucinogens, ecstasy, and inhalants combined. Could you or possibly someone you know be abusing or addicted to prescription medication? Because these drugs are prescribed by our doctors, accepted in our society, and usually taken on a regular basis, it can be difficult or even hard to accept that there is a problem. Some of the most common medications are opiates, central nervous system depressants, and stimulants. And Melissa here, one of my audience members, is one of 5.2 million Americans who abuse opiates. Opiates are medications used and prescribed to treat pain. Examples of this include Oxycontin or Vicodin. These drugs are the most addictive and the most dangerous. Last year alone, 120,000 Americans ended up in the emergency room due to an overdose on these meds. Next drug is central nervous system depressants. 1.8 million people. Jamie is part of this group. You can tell by the way he looks. Central nervous system depressants are used and prescribed to treat anxiety and sleep disorders. Examples of these are Xanax and Valium. People tend to get very addicted to these because it calms them down and makes them feel at ease. They know they can get some sleep. There are many people who have sleeping disorders, and there's nothing worse than not being able to get any sleep at night. Is that right, Melissa? Mm-hmm. And finally, this crazy crackhead over here is one of 1.2 million that abuses stimulants, also known as speed. You can tell by the way he looks as well. Stimulants are used and prescribed to treat certain sleep disorders and ADHD, also known as attention deficit disorder. Examples of this are Ritalin and Adderall. Stimulants are very popular among college students because this drug helps students stay focused and on task, and it also keeps them awake during times when they need to study and get things done for school. But there aren't many people who overdose necessarily on Adderall itself. It's usually a mixture of one or more drugs that causes seizure or cause even possible death. So with those three medications in mind, combined they kill about 26,000 Americans each year. And today, the people who are giving these medications are doctors, and they're known as glorified drug dealers. Natural News states that they are puppets of the pharmaceutical industry. Now, the reason they say this is because if you see a TV ad on the commercial, which they're always on, they start out by saying, do you have a symptom of this? Or they list you a number of symptoms, and people are sitting there watching this like, oh, I have that, and I have this. They start to wonder, do I have this disease? Do I need this medication? So they go into the doctor already aware of what this medication does and what symptoms they have. They demand this medication, and 9 times out of 10, they end up leaving with the medication. But the thing about it is usually the severe reactions or side effects, huge list of them, are things that you would rather not have than the actual problem you have for the reason you're getting the drug. Usually, like, no one wants to be leaking in certain areas, and no one wants to be throwing up all the time just to fix, headaches. So you might be wondering how people get addicted or why people get addicted to prescription drugs. And to be honest, many people are unaware of the danger. A lot of people who take prescription medications, it starts out because of a problem and then eventually becomes addicted. It's because of how these drugs are made up and how the chemicals in them are combined, I guess. They are very easy to find, easy to get from your doctor. If, like I said, if you go in there and ask them for something, you know, if it's a controlled substance, you basically need to be knowledgeable on how to get it. There's no test to say that if I were to go into the doctor, there's no test to tell me that I have ADD except from what I tell the doctor. If I go in the doctor and say I'm having trouble focusing, I'm having trouble getting my work done, I can't stay awake, they only can treat you verbally. So whatever you say, they have to believe, and they treat you according to that. So that's not very healthy. And the belief that because these drugs are legal, they're safe. Many people don't know the severe adverse reactions that can occur when mixing meds with alcohol or even other medications. So some things that we need to do is to tighten our regulatory measures, improve physician awareness, modify the drugs themselves to reduce their potential for abuse, and take a prescription TV ads off the air. And the number one thing we need to do is make the public more aware of the problems and symptoms that you could have when you're abusing or possibly overdosing on these. Unfortunately, this issue needs to be fixed in many areas. Not only do the patients need to change their habits, but our culture needs to make us more aware of this issue, and our doctors need to pay more attention to the patient's needs versus the patient's wants. Be well aware of the reactions and side effects of any medication you take. If you feel you have a problem, get help. There's plenty out there. It's time to recognize the seriousness of this issue. People are dying from their lack of understanding. Promoting medications is not acceptable, and it's not fair. Maybe we put too much trust in our healthcare professionals.